Hey, this is Spy Plane, and I'm back to upload a Diablo 4 Season 4 Spark Farm Guide. Hope you enjoy. Reason why I'm doing this video is to hopefully help enhance your Season 4 gameplay. I wasn't too keen on playing the pits over and over again, even though this is a pretty repetitive process, but it does offer up a lot more variety than the pits did. So I'll go over the background, my process, and also talk about some of my results. Hopefully you'll have better results than I did. Maybe give you some tips and then end with the conclusion. So hope you enjoy the video. Okay, so background. First of all, farming the mats is time consuming, and buying them outright, it can be very expensive. Really unique way of obviously sharing the burden of farming the mats is getting together with a bunch of buddies and taking rotations, obviously, which is pretty cool. But again, it requires you to at least have the mats to begin with. So hopefully this will help alleviate that process and relying on a lack of RNG for you to get the Uber jobs that you want. All right, now onto the process. We'll cover the gear, getting ready, transferring items, upgrading new gear, where to level, and potions and buffs. This is my latest character in Fuego, cashing out overall spark number 34, but this will be my 18th spark that I'll carry over into the Eternal Realm once the season ends. First, we'll talk about what I do before I start farming the Hell Tides is obviously creating a new character and jumping into the game. As you can see here, one of the first things I like to do is just run over to the stash and open up all of the reward caches from previous gameplay, hopefully in an effort to enhance my leveling gear and build. Then I'll transfer any items like mine cages, potions, elixirs, incense. This is where I'll take the opportunity to upgrade any new leveling gear that I found before I head out on the next Spark run. And as you can see here, I've saved 3 sets of Iron Wolf rep reward caches that I'm going to open up. I'll spare you the boredom of opening all those up here, but this is typically what I do prior to each Spark run. For some reason, I just saved 3 sets and opened them up on my last character for some reason. Onto the gear. So in this tab, I've got 8 Uber Uniques. Now, early season, I had a lot of trouble finding an Uber Unique from farming. So what I ended up doing was just repeating the Iron Wolf rep process over and over again. And with the span of about a week and a half, I had these 4 up top. I bought the Shaco first, got really lucky on the Starless materials, and then eventually got the Grandfather last. Since I have found a Doombringer and 3 additional Shakos. And this was probably within about 100 to 150 Tormented runs. Again, early season, I probably had run maybe 15, 20 Tormented boss runs and didn't get many drops. Was running out of mats quickly, so I ended up doing this, which eventually led to a lot of boss mats that I ended up selling for most of my wealth. So with that said, the Uber Uniques and Season 4 and the Iron Wolf rep provides a great opportunity for you to not rely on RNG, but just put a little bit of blood, sweat, and tears and time into farming out 4 sparks to transmute an Uber. Okay. Last season in Season 3, the whole year I ran maybe about 100, 120, maybe 150 Uber boss runs and got 0 Uber Uniques. I did find 3 last season, but they were all from Nightmare dungeons and vaults. So, and of course, all those Ubers from last season are legacy items that you can't temper, so they're pretty much worthless now in Eternal gameplay. Typical run for me is from level 1 to level 35 as fast as possible. So I have a set of gear that I could usually put on immediately, like these boots I can put on at level 1. And some of the other items I can't really put on until like at least a minimum of level 12. So it doesn't take you that long to get to level 12, but ultimately you could run out with the gear they give you at level 1, participate in the Hell Tide, and then just hit maybe 10, 15 in no time. But again, my goal if I'm leveling by myself is to get to 35 as fast as possible. And we'll talk about the benefits of playing it outright in Hell Tides at level 1 versus getting Power Rush through both your Capstones and Nightmare Tier dungeons to get to 35 or 55 higher. These next two rows are my gear sets for level 35 and level 55. Obviously, Uber Uniques can be donned at level 35, granted if they don't have a higher level gem in them. For example, like a Royal Gem. A Royal Gem has a level 90 requirement, so anytime you install a gem at that respective rate or quality, that level goes to that gem, okay, for these Ubers. So does the legendaries as well. So I typically just put on, starter gear that they give you and then swap out things that I find. I eventually just built kind of like a level 10 to 12 set here to throw on just to get me to 35, especially if I'm not able to find a good group of random players. But as you can see here, I usually run the Shaco, Tyrios, and Starless and then with the Sacred Legendary set for the remainder of the gear and a unique Tal Rasha's ring that I was lucky enough to find from an Iron Wolf reward cache with a 600 item power level and a level 35 requirement. So that was huge. So once I get to level 35, then I could keep the Ubers on, change out to my level 55 gear, which is Ancestral Legendaries, and the majority of these, with the exception of the boots, are all 925 item power. I did get this Tal Rasha's ring again from an Iron Wolf rep cash reward with the 55 level requirement because Sacreds can be worn at 35 and the Ancestrals can be worn at 55. So long as you open up that cache on a lower level player. If you open up a rewards cache, say like a Whisper or boss, world tier boss or world boss cache on a 100 level character in world tier 3 or 4, the Sacreds will be at 60 level cap and the Ancestrals at level 80. So for me, I always open up the caches on lower level characters to provide me with an opportunity to wear them sooner. Now, you don't have to temper the gear, especially during the initial stages of getting up to 35, because you're going to level so fast that this is going to cost a lot in gold and time. So I have done that with just this base set to get me to 35. Most of the time, I'm usually out there just with a bunch of random players, so I want to have something on that will at least sustain my survivability and kill speed if I happen to become, outnumbered or overwhelmed by some of the bosses in the Helltide, or minions in the Helltide. But once I get this level 35 gear on, including the Uber Uniques, I mean, this will pretty much sustain you up to at least 55. And then once you put this on, this will take you to Spark. I have experimented with other builds, such as a Frozen Orb build. I've got a level 35 set here and a level 55 set there. I found that the progress at lower levels and the sustain was just impossible for that build. So I opted just to stick with the Incinerate and Hydra build, which has been very successful for me. I didn't really jump into the Incinerate bandwagon until mid-season because I had started off with the Hydra Firewall build, but the Firewall build to me, the animation and the casting speed was so clunky. I always felt that it was very slow, so I usually just mostly ran the Hydra. And when I switched to Incinerate, it was absolutely phenomenal. It helps. Like when I get this level 55 gear on with these Uber Uniques, I can one-shot the Blood Raven at World Tier 2, and it's super fast to farm in the Helltides. So that's pretty much it. Those benchmarks, again, 35 and 55. Now, what you got to be careful for is take a look at these pants. These pants have a level 55 requirement, but look at the ones that I have on right now. They're level 90 because of the fact that they've got royal gems in there. And if I were to run to a jeweler and take those gems out, unfortunately, what happens is they retain that level 90 cap, even without the gems. So for some odd reason, the legendaries keep the higher level cap as as the Ubers do not. So just be careful with that. I've ruined a couple pieces of gear through that process and had to rebuild my leveling kits because I accidentally installed higher gems when I reached those thresholds. Believe me, with materials in World Tier 2, you're going to be at res cap, and it's not going to be an issue. You're going to be super tanky. Your survivability plus the skills with the Shaco. I mean, even though my stuff is tempered and masterworked, it just allows for me to efficiently farm these sparks. So historically, I've gone through both capstones and high tier nightmare dungeons to get power boosts or levels from buddies. And I found that to be too time consuming. Typically what I do is I just go straight out to the Helltide and start fighting. Typically won't wear any mind cages early on, like at level 1 or 2, but once I'm around a comfortable group, knowing that I'm not going to just get overwhelmed and die, I'll probably throw a mind cage on real quick to help with the monster density. So pretty much I'll take my first tier level gear, usually things that I can wear from level 1 through 12 or 15. And then when I'm out there in the Helltide region, just replace that as I find new drops. I'm not going to go back to town and worry about tempering or enchanting these things. I'm just throwing stuff on just to help me get to 35 as quick as possible. I found that by staying in World Tier 2, as opposed to going to World Tier 3 and 4 or getting a Power Rush, put me behind the curve on my Iron Wolf rep flow. Because it typically take on average between half an hour to an hour to get Power Rushed and to finish several high tier Nightmare dungeons to hit 55, to then start farming Hell Tides in my level 55 925 item power gear. So I decided that it was just obviously easier for me to just run out there at level 1 or 2 and start fighting in the Hell Tide. I can hit level 50 within about an hour of playing Hell Tides from level 1, and I've already built up all that Iron Wolf rep from the beginning, and I'm not catching up. Now on to all the buffs. Once I hit a comfortable enough level, or I'm around a comfortable enough group to not worry about getting overwhelmed, I'll start consuming the mind cages. Obviously once you hit level 10, my go-to is a Holy Bolt, and then from level 35, Anti-Venom and Holy Bolt, so I could dual consume potions, and at 45 you can start burning incense. Now you can get incense from a buddy if they burn that in your presence, so you can get the buff as well, but typically when you're out there running in the Hell Tides with randoms, you don't always necessarily have that benefit of a friend burning an instance around you. So once I hit level 55, no more experience buffs at all. Above 55, it's purely Mind Cage only, and I stay in World Tier 2 because the monsters are capped at 50. Even though the Mind Cage is going to help with the mob density, all the mobs are capped at level 50 in World Tier 2, as opposed to 3 and 4. They're obviously going to be a lot higher than you, and once you level, they become harder to kill. So kill speed's key, and I found that once I get my level 55 gear on, I could one-shot the Blood Maiden when she spawns. So for me, level 55, World Tier 2, Mind Cage only. Okay, prior to that, you obviously want to hit level 55 as fast as possible. One cool benefit from the Iron Wolf rep caches, the rewards are just plentiful. You get tons of new gear. Obviously, the intent of the gear was to aid you in leveling during Season 4 Loot Reborn, but when you repeated this process over and over again, you've already got your leveling gear built up. This is an opportunity to upgrade that gear further. Also, you'll get boss farming mats, baneful hearts, mind cages, elixirs, you name it. They give you gold as well. Angel breath, bundled herbs, things that are pretty hard to find out there in the overworld. So really good rewards. A lot of the wealth I made from the game this season was from selling boss mats that I farmed from the Helltide reward caches. As far as results are concerned, well, they vary. It depends on, what you achieve prior to hitting the spark. For me, I was taking about 9 hours early season to hit a spark. and that's because I was progressing through the game with an alternate character like I would a primary character, which I found to waste a lot more time. So for me, I average about 5 hours typically for a spark down World Tier 2 with this method. My best is around 4.5 hours, and my worst in World Tier 2 was probably about maybe 5.5 or 6 hours. I found in World Tier 3 it was roughly around 6 to 7, best being about 6, worst being about 7. World Tier 4 almost always was around 7 hours, 9 hours being the worst. So for me, 4.5 hours to 5 hours was kind of my benchmark for hitting sparks. And best for me was 2 a day. I did that a couple of times. It really does burn you out after a while, but 1 a day pretty much, could easily be done for someone who has some time off on a weekend. And onto some tips. So first, as I mentioned earlier, I stay in World Tier 2. I never go to World Tier 3 or 4 unless for some reason I need to just get a quick boost to hit level 55. If I'm having trouble finding folks to play with in World Tier 2, yeah, that could be a concern as well, because most of the gameplay is obviously going to be in World Tiers 2 and 4. 3 I found to be very empty a lot, uh, but again, it just depends on the day you're on. Another tip is don't waste time on quests. And what I mean by quests is like the Iron Wolf quest. Their storyline's pretty cool. You do it if you want to check it out and see for the first time, but anytime after, it's not really required. I found this out through accident. I was farming a spark just through repetition, and I was cashing out at the end of the day. I realized I had not done one single Iron Wolf mission. I hadn't even talked to the individuals until after I cashed out. So the quests that are important, however, are those character-specific quests that obviously are going to enhance your gameplay, such as for me and the Sorcerer, the Codex for enchantment slots, or Necromancers for the Golem, etc. Druids are obviously important as well for their perks too, so you're obviously going to want to knock those out when you can. But don't waste your time on any other things such as waypoints or strongholds. I used to do that early on, unlock all the waypoints and strongholds close to hell tides just so I can travel to them quicker. It just wasted too much time. Another tip is while you're in the hell tide, the altars are not the only thing that you have to do. You get a lot of cinders and experience quickly from that as long as you're running with a good group, but if you're by yourself, especially when I was playing through this process, I didn't really like donating 3 hearts every time just to, spawn the Blood Maiden. But running around from altar to chest, for example, when you cash out the cinders, if you see a unique monster or elite pack on the map, stop and kill them because you're going to get a lot more points for the Iron Wolf rep out of them than you would a regular mob. Additionally, I recommend cashing out the cinders earlier than later in the Helltide because the chests do periodically respawn throughout the course of the 55 minutes. If you get lucky, you might be able to end up even at the end of the Helltide where you have 0 cinders left. A lot of times I found myself donating back a bunch of cinders to the house, literally hundreds if not thousands, just because of how well the previous hour went at the altars. So again, a lot of my time was spent at the altars, but you could easily run around from chest to chest and collect enough cinders and rep from that point on. And lastly, you see those fire shrines or spires. I call them the Tower of Power. Season 3 had those. Also, they have that hand that does the life leech. See, these are timed processes. As long as you stay within the radius of those spires or hands, can generate a lot of experience, a lot of cinders, and a lot of Iron Wolf rep. So anytime you see those around the map, those are free. They don't cost you hearts. They provide you with a lot more monster, um, spawning, and if you can time that up with when your threat meter pops, then the density just gets exponential. It's absolutely insane. I ran across this person out in a Helltide, and they were also playing an Incinerate build. inspected their profile and was astonished at their build. It was nearly identical to mine with the exception they had the spear, which I never thought of initially. In fact, I just pretty much use either a wand or staff, or historically have used a wand or staff in my builds, but could have easily considered using the Uber spear in this process, hopefully to expedite that, level 35 to 55 gap. Bridging that gap has always been a struggle for me in World Tier 2, especially when you hit 50 because the experience drops off significantly. So I thought that was pretty intriguing, and here's some gameplay of us just kind of goofing off with our Incinerate builds. Pretty neat. And in conclusion, I just want to thank you guys for watching. Uh, Hopefully this has helped you and enhanced your Season 4 gameplay, especially when it comes to the Spark farming process. I see more and more people out there now with Spark specific character names. I've been doing that ever since early season, and I've seen it catching on more so now than ever. And I hope you a lot of success in your journey through the remainder of Season 4. Again, this isn't a build guide video. This isn't the fastest Spark or the fastest to 100. This is just kind of my experience and hopefully helping you optimize your process and enhancing it to achieve your Spark quicker. So if it helped you out, give me a like. Again, this is just a hobby page. Maybe Season 5 or the DLC will bring me out of retirement here and I'll start streaming and helping folks out again. Especially when it comes to power leveling or maybe just hanging out and leveling together and playing the game in general. But, if I missed anything, please let me know in the comments because anything that we can improve upon the community will definitely help everybody else out as a whole. So, again, thank you for watching the video. Take care and good luck out there with the RNG.